that all of the Sahrawi NGOs, those who are trying to work for Sahrawi human rights in occupied Western Sahara, are completely banned from having any form of official registration. So they're not able to operate in any of the basic ways that we take absolutely for granted here. Similarly, in terms of freedom of expression, huge restrictions on what they're able to do. Freedom of assembly, freedom of association, all of these rights completely set aside. But in a way, that's the technical aspect. And the most moving aspect, the most profoundly personal aspect, I suppose, of the trip was when we were sitting meeting with people who themselves had lost their own family members, sisters who'd seen their brothers shot, mothers who'd lost their sons who had disappeared and had never been heard of for almost 10 years, friends who'd lost friends, brothers who'd lost brothers, brothers who'd lost sisters. And that personal testimony remains so powerful, because if you're sitting in a small room with somebody and they're telling you how they've gone through these type of terrible experiences as part of the daily oppression, as part of a 39-year occupation, you can't but be really moved by that. And I want to echo what Marcus said in paying tribute to those people for their courage in standing up for their rights, for standing up for the rights of the others, talking to us and sharing their experiences, even when they were the most painful experiences that they had to share. At the same time, we were also welcomed by the mayor and the governor of Laayoune, who gave us this very lavish reception and told us about how, in fact, all the people in Western Sahara enjoy the same basic freedoms that we enjoy here. And we heard at quite some length of all of these major projects which were being brought in to develop Laayoune into a sort of mirage in the desert, if you wish. But then we had our own first-hand experience. And the experience was of going to a demonstration, just one of these regular demonstrations which Sahrawi people have taken to mounting every single month. And Raheem told us about this new strategy of trying to go onto the streets to keep alive the spirit of the fight for Sahrawi independence. And we were being driven very slowly towards this demonstration as it began to fall. But it couldn't fall, because wherever you were, there you had people, police in police clothes, police in paramilitary clothes, but more importantly, lots and lots of police in civilian clothes. And plainclothes policemen being driven fast in armed police cars into a crowd of people who were waiting to demonstrate, waiting to come together to form a protest march, jumping out of these squad cars, armed with sticks, and running into the groups of people and dispersing them so they couldn't meet. And this basically gave the lie to all of the claims that these rights and these freedoms were in existence in occupied Western Sahara. And we basically saw this brutality, this complete denial of any right to freedom of assembly taking place in front of our eyes. And it was only, in fact, when we were being driven in the car which we were in that it became a safe space, because the Moroccan police couldn't attack. The Moroccan police couldn't attack the demonstrators as they formed around our car. And there's very compelling, very moving imagery, footage taken by video cameras, showing the people being able at last to unfurl the Sahrawi flag, which of course is a crime against the national integrity of Morocco, being able to chant, being able to meet, and being able to demonstrate together peaceably. And I think the most sinister aspect of that was when we were also briefly detained by the police. They pulled the car over and they took the camera belonging to John, and they basically came right up to us saying, you've got to leave, you've got to get away, this is all completely out of order, you're not meant to be here, you've been inciting violence. And even though I knew that we were safe, we were the protected ones, we had the diplomatic immunity, we had the sort of presence there where we weren't threatened, you cannot but feel really intimidated if you have a group of 30 unarmed but unmarked police officers in civilian clothes all around you like this. And interestingly, when the camera was stolen, one of the things we said to the prefect of police was, one of your policemen has just stolen our camera. He said, what was he wearing? I said, he was wearing a brown jacket. How do you know he was a policeman? Instantly, you've got no accountability there. And I said, well, I do know he's a policeman, so he jumped in your police car and sped away with police on the side of it. And we got the camera back in the end. But I think that's why that threat, that intimidation, that lack of any accountability, that lack of any rights is what really impressed me most. And that's why in the Guardian piece, which Jeremy refers to this morning, I thought it was right to say that Western Sahara is basically a police state. We know about it being under occupation, but it feels like a police state. And the last thing I want to say in this respect is what do we bring back? What do we have to do as people living here in the security of Britain? Well, I think that we have a really important role in terms of expressing solidarity with the Sahrawi people living under this occupation, and that's why it was so important to go to the occupied territories. Solidarity because we are Europeans and we are complicit. Since the European Parliament voted in December of last year to extend the fisheries agreement, which they voted against before, but to put in place a fisheries agreement with Morocco, which extends into Sahrawi waters, over which they have no rights whatsoever, we are complicit. Our representatives in the European Parliament have signed up to a deal which steals Sahrawi resources just so that European trawlers can go up and down the coast because they've overfished the North Sea. That's unacceptable. And so we have an absolute duty to stand up with the Sahrawi people and say, no, those resources are not Moroccan resources, those are resources which belong to the people. And the final thing, we can take a first step to breaking the chains that bind the Sahrawi people at the moment, by voting, by trying to get the MINURSO mandate, monitoring mandate of the UN body in Western Sahara, extended to include human rights. And I know John's going to talk about that at the end. In which case, I have no more to say on this except War on Want is proud to stand in solidarity with the Sahrawi people. We've done so for many, many years, and we will continue to do so until the Sahrawi people have their right to self-determination through a referendum and can choose their own future in liberty with full enjoyment of human rights. Thank you.